July 20th, 1944, 12:42 p.m. The Wolf's Lair, Hitler's Eastern Front headquarters deep in the forests of East Prussia. A wooden briefing hut swelters in summer heat. Adolf Hitler leans over a massive oak table studying maps of the crumbling Eastern Front. Generals, staff officers, and stenographers crowd the room. Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg, a 36-year-old aristocratic officer who lost his left eye, right hand, and two fingers of his left hand in North Africa, places his leather briefcase under the table, just 6 feet from Hitler, and excuses himself to take an urgent phone call. Inside that briefcase, 2 pounds of British plastic explosive, a 10-minute chemical fuse already activated. At this moment, Stauffenberg represents the culmination of years of conspiracy, dozens of failed attempts, and the desperate last hope of the German resistance to end Hitler's regime from within. At 12:42 p.m. precisely, the bomb detonates. The explosion tears through the wooden structure. Windows shatter. The roof collapses. Bodies are thrown across the room. Smoke and dust fill the air. Screams echo through the compound. Stauffenberg, watching from 200 yards away, is certain Hitler is dead. He races to a waiting plane, flies to Berlin, and sets in motion Operation Valkyrie, the coup d'etat that will overthrow the Nazi regime and negotiate peace with the Allies. But in the wreckage of the briefing hut, through the smoke and chaos, Adolf Hitler stands up. His hair is singed. His trousers are shredded. His eardrums are ruptured, but he's alive. And the plotters in Berlin have just hours before the regime discovers their treason and the Gestapo comes for them. This is the story of Operation Valkyrie, the closest anyone came to killing Hitler, the coup that failed by minutes and chance, and the German resistance movement that history too often forgets. The myth persists that all Germans supported Hitler, that the Third Reich enjoyed monolithic popular support until its final collapse. The reality is far more complex. From the moment Hitler took power in 1933, opposition existed, fragmented, underground, constantly hunted, but persistent. Communists, socialists, church leaders, intellectuals, and even elements within the military resisted the Nazi regime. But by 1944, after 11 years of Nazi rule, most opposition groups have been destroyed. The Gestapo's efficiency is terrifying. Informers are everywhere. The penalty for resistance is torture and death. Those who speak against the regime simply disappear into the night and fog, nacked unnebel. Yet within the German military, a conspiracy persists. Unlike civilian resistance groups that the Gestapo can easily infiltrate and destroy, military conspirators have access to weapons, communications, and most critically, Hitler himself. The military resistance centers around several key figures. Colonel General Ludwig Beck, asterisk, former chief of the German General Staff, resigned in 1938 in protest over Hitler's war plans. Beck becomes the intellectual and moral center of the resistance, the designated head of state should the coup succeed. Karl Friedrich Goerdeler, asterisk, former mayor of Leipzig, conservative politician who represents the civilian resistance, designated chancellor in the post-Hitler government. General Friedrich Olbrecht, chief of the General Army Office, controls the replacement army and has the administrative power to issue orders throughout Germany. Major General Henning von Tresckow, Eastern Front commander, passionate anti-Nazi who organizes multiple assassination attempts. Colonel Claus von Stauffenberg, the youngest of the senior conspirators, aristocratic officer whose war wounds and charisma make him the operational leader. These men are not Democrats in the modern sense. Most are conservative monarchists, Prussian aristocrats, traditional military officers who believe in honor, duty, and Germany, but not in Hitler's apocalyptic vision. They oppose Hitler not initially for moral reasons, but because they believe he's leading Germany to destruction. But by 1944, moral revulsion has also taken hold. These officers know about the Holocaust. They know about the mass murders in the East. Some have witnessed atrocities firsthand. They understand that Germany is committing crimes that will stain the nation forever. They also understand, with cold military logic, that Germany has lost the war. The Eastern Front is collapsing. D-Day has succeeded. Allied bombers are destroying German cities. The only question is how much longer the agony continues. If Hitler can be killed and the Nazi regime overthrown, perhaps Germany can negotiate peace with the Western Allies, stop the Soviet advance, and save something from the catastrophe. This is the calculation, part pragmatic, part moral, wholly desperate. But killing Hitler is only the first step. The conspiracy requires a plan to seize power in the chaos following his death. That plan is Operation Valkyrie. Ironically, Operation Valkyrie is Hitler's own contingency plan. The plan was designed to suppress internal unrest in Germany, slave labor uprisings, Allied paratroop drops behind German lines, potential coups by disaffected elements. If such an emergency occurred, Operation Valkyrie would activate the replacement army, declare martial law, and restore order. The conspirators realize they can hijack this plan. If Hitler is killed, they can activate Valkyrie under the pretext that rogue SS elements have attempted a coup. The replacement army will arrest SS leaders, secure communications, and take control of the government, supposedly to protect the regime, actually to overthrow it. The plan is elegant and audacious. They're using Hitler's own emergency procedures to destroy his regime. The key is Stauffenberg. As chief of staff to the commander of the replacement army, he has the authority to issue Valkyrie orders. More importantly, his position gives him regular access to Hitler's briefings, access most conspirators lack. But Stauffenberg faces enormous challenges. He must, 1. Get close enough to Hitler to place a bomb. 2. Ensure the bomb kills Hitler. 3. Escape the blast site. 4. Fly back to Berlin 3.5 hours. 5. Activate Operation Valkyrie before anyone realizes what happened. 6. Seize control of communications before the regime can respond. Each step requires perfect execution. One failure dooms the entire conspiracy. By July 1944, time is running out. The Western Allies are advancing through France. The Soviets are pushing toward Poland. Every day the war continues brings more death, more destruction, more war crimes committed in Germany's name. The conspirators have already attempted to kill Hitler multiple times. March 13, 1943. Tresckow places a bomb disguised as bottles of cognac aboard Hitler's plane. The chemical fuse fails in the cold at altitude. March 21, 1943. Another conspirator tries to suicide bomb Hitler at an exhibition. Hitler leaves early. November 1943. Multiple attempts fail due to Hitler's irregular schedule. July 11, 1944. Stauffenberg places a bomb at a briefing, but Hitler leaves before it detonates. July 15, 1944. Stauffenberg has a bomb ready but hesitates because Himmler isn't present. The conspirators want to kill both. Each failure increases the risk of discovery. The Gestapo is investigating. Some conspirators have been arrested. Others are under surveillance. July 20th, 1944, represents perhaps the last opportunity. Stauffenberg is summoned to brief Hitler at the Wolf's Lair. This may be the final chance. July 20th, 1944, begins early for Stauffenberg. He wakes at his quarters near Berlin, knowing that by nightfall he'll either be dead or leading the new German government. At 7 a.m., he flies to the Wolf's Lair in East Prussia, arriving around 10:30 a.m. He carries 2 bombs, 2 pounds of British plastic explosive each, enough to destroy a small building. The Wolf's Lair is a fortress. Minefields, checkpoints, SS guards, layers of security, but Stauffenberg is expected. His name is on the list. His briefcase passes through security. The guards are looking for pistols, not bombs. At 12:30 p.m., Stauffenberg enters the briefing hut. The meeting is supposed to be in Hitler's underground bunker, which would contain the blast and ensure Hitler's death. But the summer heat has forced the meeting into an above-ground wooden structure with windows. The blast will dissipate. Stauffenberg has no choice. This is the opportunity. He places his briefcase under the conference table, positioning it as close to Hitler as possible, about 6 feet away. Then he excuses himself, claiming an urgent phone call. Outside, he watches. At 12:42 p.m., the bomb detonates. The explosion is massive. The wooden structure disintegrates. The roof collapses. Glass shatters. Bodies are thrown across the room. 4 men will die from the blast, but none of them is Hitler. What saves Hitler's life is a combination of chance and the room's construction. 1. The room is above ground with windows. The blast dissipates outward rather than being contained. 2. The heavy oak table provides protection from the worst of the blast. 3. An officer moves the briefcase. Asterisk. Colonel Heinz Brandt, looking at maps, finds the briefcase in his way and moves it to the far side of the table's thick oak support leg. Just enough distance and shielding to save Hitler's life while costing Brandt his own. 4. Hitler was leaning over the table. Asterisk, his position puts the table between him and the blast. Stauffenberg doesn't know this. From 200 yards away, seeing the explosion, he's certain Hitler is dead. He bluffs his way through checkpoints, reaches his plane, and takes off for Berlin. During the 3.5-hour flight, he's unreachable. The conspirators in Berlin wait anxiously for confirmation. They need to know Hitler is dead before activating Valkyrie. If he's alive and they issue coup orders, it's treason and instant death. But in the wolf's lair, Hitler emerges from the wreckage. His hair is singed. His right arm is injured. His eardrums are ruptured. His trousers are in tatters, but he's conscious, standing, and immediately suspicious. Who placed that bomb? Who was near the briefcase? Where is Stauffenberg? The Nazi security apparatus begins moving. Stauffenberg lands in Berlin around 4 p.m., nearly 3.5 hours after the explosion. He immediately contacts the conspirators. Hitler is dead. Activate Valkyrie. But the conspirators have hesitated during those crucial hours. Conflicting reports from the wolf's lair. Some say Hitler is dead. Others say he survived. Without confirmation, they've waited. This delay is fatal. General Friedrich Olbricht finally issues the Valkyrie orders around 4 p.m. Teletypes clatter across Germany. Martial law is declared. The SS has attempted a coup. Army units are to secure government buildings, arrest SS leadership, and restore order. In some cities, the plan works perfectly. In Paris, the military governor arrests 1,200 SS and Gestapo personnel. In Vienna, Prague, and other cities, army units follow orders, securing key installations. In Berlin, Major Otto Ernst Remer, commanding the Guard Battalion, receives orders to seal off the government quarter. Remer is a loyal Nazi, but follows orders from his military superiors. For a few hours, it seems to be working. The government quarter is sealed. Communications are controlled. SS leaders are being arrested. The new government is forming. But then, around 6:30 p.m., everything unravels. Remer, suspicious about the SS coup story, contacts propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels. Goebbels, one of the few Nazi leaders still in Berlin, realizes what's happening. He puts Hitler on the phone. Hitler, very much alive, speaks directly to Remer. The voice is unmistakable. Hitler orders Remer to arrest the conspirators and restore order. Remer immediately switches sides. The Guard Battalion surrounds the Bendeler block, the military headquarters where the conspirators are coordinating the coup. In the Bendeler block, the conspirators realize it's over. Some officers refuse to follow their orders. Others actively resist. Soldiers loyal to the regime are already surrounding the building. Stauffenberg, Beck, Olbricht, and the key conspirators are trapped. There's no escape, no fallback plan. The coup has failed. Around 11 p.m., loyalist officers storm into the Bendeler block. There's a brief shootout. Stauffenberg is wounded in the shoulder. General Olbricht is arrested. Beck asks permission to shoot himself. The traditional Prussian officers exit, and is allowed to do so, though he botches the suicide and has to be finished by a sergeant. Shortly after midnight, in the courtyard of the Bendeler block, Stauffenberg, Olbricht, and 2 other key conspirators, Albrecht Merz von Quernheim and Werner von Heefen, face a firing squad. The execution is lit by the headlights of trucks. It's hasty, brutal, perfunctory. Stauffenberg's last words, as bullets tear into him: "Long live sacred Germany." By July 21st, less than 12 hours after the bomb exploded, the key conspirators are dead. and the coup is finished. But Hitler's revenge is just beginning. Hitler's rage is apocalyptic. The conspiracy wasn't just a few isolated traitors. It extended deep into the Wehrmacht, the aristocracy, the civil service. This is betrayal by Germany's traditional elite. The response is methodical and merciless. Over the following months, the Gestapo arrests approximately 7,000 people with real or suspected connections to the plot. Nearly 5,000 are executed. The methods are deliberately cruel. The People's Court. Hitler orders show trials presided over by Roland Freisler, a fanatical Nazi judge who screams abuse at defendants, denies them legal representation, and delivers predetermined verdicts. The trials are filmed for propaganda purposes. Execution methods. Most conspirators are hanged with piano wire from meat hooks, dying slowly by strangulation. Hitler watches films of the executions. Traditional military firing squads, considered too honorable, are forbidden. Sippenhaft, blood guilt, family members of conspirators are arrested. Wives, children, even distant relatives are imprisoned. Names are changed to erase family lines. Purge of the military. Any officer with suspected anti-Nazi sympathies is removed, arrested, or executed. The Wehrmacht is brought fully under Nazi party control. Notable victims include Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. Though his involvement is unclear, he's implicated and given the choice. Public trial and execution with his family arrested, or suicide with honor and his family protected. He takes poison on October 14, 1944. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, head of military intelligence, long suspected of disloyalty, arrested and executed. Karl Friedrich Goerdeler, the designated chancellor, goes into hiding but is captured, tortured, and executed. General Friedrich Olbrecht, shot hours after the coup failed. General Ludwig Beck, allowed to shoot himself, though he botches the suicide. The purge extends to anyone, even tangentially connected. A secretary who typed documents. An officer who had a conversation with a conspirator. An aristocrat related by marriage to someone involved. The paranoia and violence continue until Germany's final collapse in May 1945. The counterfactual is endlessly debated. What if the bomb had killed Hitler? What if Operation Valkyrie had succeeded? Scenario 1. Immediate chaos. Even with Hitler dead, success was far from guaranteed. Himmler and the SS controlled vast power. Goering was Hitler's designated successor. The Gestapo was intact. Fanatical Nazis wouldn't simply accept a coup. Germany in July 1944 likely descends into civil war. Wehrmacht versus SS. Different factions fighting for control. The conspirators were divided among themselves about post-Hitler Germany. Unity was unlikely. Scenario 2. The Allies reject negotiations. The conspirators hope to negotiate peace with the Western Allies while continuing to fight the Soviets. This was always fantasy. The Allies had declared unconditional surrender in 1943. Roosevelt and Churchill weren't going to negotiate with any German government. They wanted total Nazi defeat and wouldn't distinguish between Hitler and his would-be successors. Stalin absolutely wouldn't negotiate. The Soviet Union had suffered over 20 million casualties. Stalin wanted Germany destroyed, occupied, and controlled. Scenario 3. The war ends sooner, maybe the most optimistic scenario. A post-Hitler German government sues for peace. The Allies accept unconditional surrender sooner. The final 9 months of slaughter are avoided. This could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. German civilians in bombed cities, concentration camp inmates, soldiers on all sides. It might have prevented the final Soviet offensive's atrocities. But it wouldn't have prevented Allied occupation, war crimes trials, or Germany's division. The fundamental outcome, total German defeat, was already determined by July 1944. Scenario 4. The Holocaust continues even with Hitler dead. Stopping the Holocaust immediately would be nearly impossible. The killing machinery was decentralized, operated by thousands of enthusiastic perpetrators. Many camps would have continued operations for weeks or months before being shut down. The horrible reality. By July 1944, most of the Holocaust's victims were already dead. The plot came too late to save the majority. For decades after the war, the July 20th conspirators received ambiguous treatment in Germany. In West Germany during the 1950s-60s, many viewed them as traitors. The narrative was, they stabbed Germany in the back. Veterans' organizations refused to honor them. Conservative politicians questioned their patriotism. This attitude gradually shifted. By the 1960s-70s, Germans began recognizing the conspirators as heroes. Proof that not all Germans supported Hitler, that resistance existed within Germany itself. Today, July 20th, is commemorated as a day of honor. Stauffenberg and his co-conspirators are remembered as martyrs who tried to stop the Nazi apocalypse. Streets, military bases, and institutions bear their names. The Bendeler Block, where Stauffenberg was executed, is now the German Resistance Memorial Center. A monument in the courtyard marks where he died. Yet questions remain. Were they heroes or self-interested elites? Most conspirators supported Hitler initially. Some participated in war crimes. They turned against him when Germany was losing, not when Jews were being murdered. Their motives were mixed: patriotism, morality, self-preservation. Did they do enough soon enough? Critics argue they should have acted years earlier, before millions died. Defenders respond that acting earlier was nearly impossible. Hitler was popular, security was tight, opportunities were rare. What does their sacrifice mean? At minimum, the July 20th conspirators prove that choices existed. Not every German blindly followed Hitler. Some risked everything to resist. Their failure doesn't diminish their courage. July 20th, 1944, 12:42 p.m. For one moment, history balanced on a knife's edge. If Colonel Brandt hadn't moved the briefcase, if the meeting had been in the bunker, if Stauffenberg had used both bombs, if Hitler had been standing 2 feet closer, any of these changes and Hitler dies. Operation Valkyrie activates. The coup succeeds, maybe. The war ends sooner, possibly. Hundreds of thousands of lives are saved, perhaps. But history doesn't pivot on if. It pivots on what actually happened. What happened? The bomb detonated. Hitler survived. The coup failed. The conspirators died. The war continued for 9 more months of slaughter, yet their attempt matters. In the moral darkness of Nazi Germany, Stauffenberg and his fellow conspirators lit a flame. Weak, flickering, extinguished almost immediately, but burning nonetheless. They proved that choices existed, that not all Germans embraced evil, that even in totalitarian darkness, resistance was possible. Claus von Stauffenberg, one-eyed, one-handed, walking with a limp from his war wounds, placed a bomb at Hitler's feet, knowing he would almost certainly die for it. He did it anyway. "Long live sacred Germany" were his last words, the Germany he believed in, not Hitler's Germany. The Germany of honor, duty, and civilization. The Germany that might have been, if only the bomb had been 2 feet closer. Operation Valkyrie failed, but its failure doesn't erase its significance. Sometimes, the most important stories are not about success, but about the willingness to try. On July 20th, 1944, a small group of German officers tried to kill Hitler and end the Nazi regime from within. They failed. But their failure reminds us that in even the darkest times, there are those who choose resistance over complicity. That choice, made in full knowledge of the likely cost, is what makes them heroes, regardless of the outcome.